I want to open the phones up specifically for questions on the flu, the level 6 pandemic declared when it's really not a pandemic, according to medical doctors we've talked to. They've changed the scale to call it a pandemic when it's not. I'd like you to speak to that, but I want to take calls, 1-800-259-9231, but only on the flu and the whole martial law situation, 1-800-259-9231. But doctor, specifically, and Ron Paul agrees, this is a medical tyranny. First, they say we're taking your rights for shadowy people in turbans in Central Asia, in Afghanistan. Then they go, oh, well, really, DHS and Homeland Security and Northcom are for the American people. And yeah, the Patriot Act is being used in non-terror related. And we don't need warrants anymore to take your blood at checkpoints or bust in your house. And, you know, but that's not even good enough. It's perfect to then say everybody could have the flu. Everybody could be carrying it. And it's just a perfect excuse to further expand under UN control the takeover of nation states. And under level 6, we are under UN control right now. I mean, do you get what I'm saying here? That flu is the perfect thing to create the ultimate boogeyman?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm in total agreement, Alex, with everything that you just said. Because one thing has led to another. And the thing that bothers me about all of this is that, you know, somebody's out there making those FEMA camps. Somebody's hammering nail into wood. Somebody is making those shots and giving them to people. Somebody is putting documents in place and signing their names. And who those somebodies are our neighbors, our friends, people we go to church with, people that are in our schools, our soccer teams. Why is it that people who are doing those things can't see what's happening and stop, and let's all band together, and it's really us Americans. There's 300 million of us and 550 of them. We've got the resistance. We've got the power of the people here. We've got numbers, but yet we have allowed that small set of 554 of them down in Washington, D.C., to pull all this wool over our eyes. I think it's really time that we all stand up and set aside our differences and say enough is enough, just like that 9/12 march. I mean, when I looked at that, to me, it really wasn't about what side of the equation you were on or what you were saying or where your politics happened to stand. It was the fact that people were willing to get out of their chairs, spend money, go to Washington, and make their voice be heard. And I think that on a state-by-state, community-by-community level, this is what we need to do.
Well, you're absolutely right. Doctor, what about adverse reactions from the flu trials? We've had nurses calling in saying that when they get the shots, everybody's arm basically becomes paralyzed. We have the internal CDC report about neurological problems linked to previous vaccines and possibly to this one. What's the intel on that now?
Well, I heard a report out of, it was a rumored report, but it was a report that came out of Oklahoma that said that there was a small hospital where the doctors all got together and said they weren't going to take it, neither were the nurses, and they weren't going to give it to anybody because they had heard the same sort of things, that out of these clinical trials that there was a lot of adverse reactions that were not being reported at all. And, you know, that's another thing, is if there's anybody out there that's been forced to take this by a nurse or paramedics or first responders, they need to be very vocal about it and let everybody else know the type of reactions that they had, because it's not going to be reported by the CDC. And, you know, with YouTube that we have now and blogs and the Internet, there are ways that we can make our voice be heard. So I really think there's going to be a lot of problems with this. Now, the CDC's already loaded their side of the deck on that, though, Alex. They've already put up PowerPoint presentations and had other speakers who are from the CDC say, yes, of course, because we're going to have so many people vaccinated at the same time, the percentage risk of vaccination injury is going to go up, so we expect that, and that's going to be acceptable. Well, it's not acceptable.
Well, I've got a report here at Infowars.net from Steve Watson. Swine flu document lists sports arena as max vaccination center. And we've always known that was the plan. People ask, where are the FEMA camps? And Congress admits, and the New York Times admits, they've built certain FEMA camps, 6 big ones across the country, for millions of Americans. But they admit the sports stadiums, the local schools, these are the places they can roll barbed wire in hours, or they already have it, and lock everybody down. They're training the military for forced quarantine under level 6, but they're saying, well, we're not sure if we're going to implement that. And they're now kind of floating the trial balloon of oh, well, you don't have to take the shot, but you can't fly, you can't get on a bus, you can't drive to work, and you're going to have to wear a bracelet. Digital Angel, the Verichip company, got a patent. Their stock went up 200+% the other day. Where you have to take a chip to prove you've had it. That's AP reporting that. I mean, this is 1984, what we're seeing.
Alex, it's exactly what I've been saying for the last 6 months, that I really don't think that the government at any level, whether it's state or local, has quite the power in this big country that's spread out across everywhere to make everybody show up at a certain place and force them to get a vaccine. But they can make it really, really hard to refuse it. And the really hard to refuse it is that list of things that you already said. And, you know, you can't go to places where there's large congregations, which could be church, could be the grocery store, could be if you have a place of employment that has more than 30 or 40 people, that they would hire a security guard at the door, and you have to either show your digital chip or your card that looks like a driver's license.
Or bracelet.
Or a bracelet or anything like that. And, you know, I'm just this doctor out here in Cleveland, Ohio. And if I can think of that and you can think of that, certainly those who would be making those sorts of tools can be thinking of that.
No, they're saying that's what they're going to do under level 6.
And I've been saying it for 6 months, that was probably that I was very suspicious that was coming down the road. So now it's just coming out into full view, and the playbook is being opened up, and more and more people are hearing about it.
You're right. We're a 90% urban society. When we had the Great Depression, we were 20% urban. We're totally dependent on government. The highways were designed by the Pentagon and President Eisenhower, and the Pentagon brags. This is how they control our society. They control the resources. They control our currency. The UN, Maurice Strong, the head of their program in 92 at the Rio de Janeiro summit, we have his quotes in the new film, said they were going to deindustrialize us to make us go into their control for eugenics. And this may be the big final giant beta test to then launch the main attack in the next 2 to 3 years, or this could be it. And I think they're gauging, testing the public, testing our response, and have it in between red light and blue and green light. They are looking, and I believe in the next week or two are going to make the decision. And I've really learned how to guess what they're going to do. They're making the decision whether this is the final beta test or if they're going to go live right now. And God help us.
You know, there was a report that came out from a meeting that happened in Washington just a couple weeks ago. And one of the people from the autism community from Safe Minds wrote a report about what was happening at that meeting. And they were talking about what level the insider, the flu vaccine people who were all there. There were only 2 people who were non-government and CDC employee insiders at this meeting, and it was an invitation-only meeting. And Barbara Lowe Fisher, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the other woman's name, but she's from Safe Minds, was at this meeting, and she wrote a report and said that, you know, most people, when they went out and did those town hall meetings, that the vast majority of people said they needed to go slow, either very slow, intermediate, or fast. And it was the government officials who said, we need to take this at the highest level, and we need to vaccinate everybody. It was 55% of them.
Well, let me confirm what you're saying. We had Wayne Madsen, who went to that big international, somewhat government-run swine flu symposium 3 weeks ago in D.C., and we got their internal program and the cover. In fact, we broke that it was originally happening as a listener in D.C., sent it to us, and then we covered it all. And no, that was discussed openly. And then one of the government people said, kick the media out of here, turn off recording devices. And the whole thing was about what will the public accept. And now we broke at prisonplanet.com last week an article that had the government document in it. They're sending to business owners, even small ones. And the questionnaires there saying, will you forcibly inoculate your employees? Will you do what you're told? Will you go to quarantine centers? So it's confirmed. The feds are testing with their antennae out in the wind to decide if they're going to make their move. We're being studied by the psychological warfare system. Right now, they're making the decision. And God help us.
Well, Alex, what's the solution here? How do we mobilize people to make a decision of what they're going to do to protect their families and their communities? How do we get, what's the how-to? I mean, we send out a lot of information. I mean, you give information hour after hour every day. I do a lot of radio. I'm on the Internet a lot. I write a lot of articles. And the bottom line is people say, okay, this is great. I'm hearing what you're saying, but what should I do? What's my how-to?
Well, we can't tell you get sunshine and get colloidal silver. We can't. I mean, we're telling you they're going to set up checkpoints if they decide to drop the hammer. All I can do is try to reach as many people as I can, and spend up most of my time just trying to fund my operation. I mean, it's not a powerlessness. We know we're reaching more people than ever, but it doesn't look like it's enough soon enough. And